The broken vessel. A strange distress call. Marcus Webb was elbow-deep in the guts of a plasma drive when the distress signal arrived. He was not a hero. He was not a soldier. He was a mechanic working at the edge of known space in a repair station that most people forgot existed. The station, officially called Waypoint Echo 9 but known to everyone as the Toolbox, orbited a dead moon that nobody cared about. It was the perfect place for someone who wanted to be left alone. The signal came through on the old emergency channel, the one that nobody used anymore because better technology had replaced it. But Marcus kept the old systems running because, in his experience, the universe had a way of needing backup plans. The message was garbled, filled with static and strange harmonics that made his equipment crackle and pop. Any station, hearing this, critical failure, life support, please. The voice was not human. That much was clear. It had a musical quality, like someone singing and speaking at the same time. Marcus had heard many alien voices in his 15 years working the frontier, but this one was different. This one sounded afraid. The decision to help. Marcus stood in his workshop, oil-stained hands hanging at his sides, and considered his options. The smart thing would be to forward the signal to the authorities and let them handle it. That was the safe choice. That was the choice that kept you alive in places like this. But Marcus had not always been a mechanic. Before the station, before the isolation, before the choice to disappear into the edges of space, he had been something else. A rescue technician in the colonial fleet. He had pulled people from wreckage, from dying ships, from the cold vacuum. He had been good at it too, until the day he could not save them all. Until the day he watched a transport full of civilians burn because he had to choose who lived and who died. That was 10 years ago. 10 years of running from the memory, from the faces, from the screams he still heard in quiet moments. But some instincts never died. Some training never left you. Location, he said to his computer. Where is that signal coming from? The computer took a moment, triangulating the old transmission. Approximately 200,000 kilometers. Bearing 317 Mark IV. Object appears to be drifting. No active propulsion detected. Close enough to reach. Far enough that nobody else would bother. Marcus grabbed his pressure suit from the wall and began pulling it on. The suit was old, patched in a dozen places, but it held vacuum and that was all that mattered. This is stupid, he told himself as he prepped his salvage shuttle. This is incredibly stupid. He launched anyway. The vessel. The ship Marcus found floating in the darkness was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was not built with straight lines or proper angles. Instead, it curved and flowed like something grown rather than constructed. The hull appeared to be made of crystal or glass, translucent panels that showed faint light within. Symbols covered the surface, glowing softly in patterns that hurt to look at too long. What are you? Marcus whispered as he brought his shuttle alongside. The vessel was small, maybe 30 meters across, shaped like a teardrop or a seed pod. There were no obvious engines, no weapons, no communication arrays. Just the smooth crystalline hull and those strange flowing symbols. According to his scanners, the ship was dying. Power at 3%. Life support failing. Atmospheric pressure dropping. Someone was inside. Someone who would be dead in less than an hour if nothing changed. Marcus found what might have been an airlock or at least a seam in the hull where two panels met. He attached his shuttle's boarding tube and began working on the seal. His hands moved automatically, years of training taking over. Cut here, bypass there, equalize pressure carefully so nothing explosive happens. The work was delicate, but he had done this 1,000 times before. The airlock opened. Meeting the Zephyra. Inside, the ship was even stranger than outside. The walls glowed with soft bioluminescent light. The air, what little remained of it, smelled like flowers and lightning storms. Everything curved and flowed. There were no right angles, no sharp edges, as if the entire vessel had been shaped by wind and water rather than tools. Marcus found her in what might have been the control chamber or medical bay, or perhaps both at once. The Zephyra, though he did not know that name yet, was unlike any being he had encountered. She stood nearly 8 feet tall when fully upright, though now she lay collapsed against a crystalline console. Her body was slender, almost fragile-looking, covered in skin that seemed to shift between colors like oil on water. Her face was angular with large eyes that held depths Marcus could not name. Those eyes were closed now. She was unconscious. "Okay," Marcus said, forcing his voice to stay calm. "Let us see what we are working with." His scanner showed biological readings that made no sense. Her body temperature fluctuated wildly. Her equivalent of a heartbeat was erratic. Whatever she breathed, it was not just oxygen. The atmosphere in the ship was a complex mixture his equipment struggled to analyze. The console she leaned against flickered with dying light. Marcus could not read the symbols, but he understood emergency warnings when he saw them. The ship was not just failing. It was shutting down on purpose, trying to preserve the last of its power for something critical. Come on," Marcus muttered, pulling tools from his belt. "What are you trying to tell me?" Understanding the problem. It took Marcus 20 minutes to realize the truth. The ship was alive. Not in the metaphorical sense, but actually living. It was biological technology, a fusion of organism and machine that his human mind struggled to categorize. The ship and the Zephyra were connected, linked somehow at a fundamental level. When the ship died, so would she. The damage was extensive. Some kind of spatial anomaly had torn through the hull, rupturing systems Marcus did not understand. The ship had sealed itself, protecting its pilot, but the effort had drained almost all its energy reserves. Now both were dying slowly in the cold of space. Marcus had repaired thousands of ships, from simple shuttles to complex warships. But he had never worked on something alive before, never tried to heal rather than fix. His training had not prepared him for this. Nothing could have prepared him for this. But he was here. She was dying. And giving up was not something Marcus Webb knew how to do, no matter how far he had run from his past. "All right," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "Let us figure this out together." He placed his hands on the crystalline console, feeling it warm beneath his touch, feeling something like a pulse running through it. The ship responded. Faintly, weakly, but it responded. Symbols flowed across the surface, faster now, urgent. They were showing him something. Teaching him. Asking for help in the only way they could. Marcus began to work. He pulled components from his shuttle. Jury-rigged power connections. Used every trick he had learned in 15 years of frontier repairs. He worked with desperate focus, talking to the ship like it could understand him, because maybe it could. "Just hold on," he said. "Both of you, just hold on a little longer." The Zephyra's eyes flickered open. Those impossible eyes found his face through the faceplate of his helmet. And in that moment, something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. Hope. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Instead, Marcus felt something in his mind. Not words exactly, but meaning. Gratitude. Trust. A desperate plea to save not just her, but something much more important. "I am trying," Marcus promised. "I am trying." Behind him, his shuttle's computers began shrieking warnings. The vessel's core was destabilizing. Whatever kept it alive was failing faster now. Minutes, not hours. If he could not find a solution soon, the ship would collapse completely, taking both the Zephyra and Marcus with it. The old mechanic looked at his tools, looked at the dying ship, looked at the alien woman who had trusted him with her life. And he made a choice. Not the safe choice. Not the smart choice. But the only choice he could live with. "All right then," Marcus said quietly. "Let us do something stupid." The gift of understanding. A desperate solution. Marcus had rebuilt ships from scrap metal and hope before, but never while they were actively dying around him. The Zephyr's vessel was not like human technology where you could slap a patch on the hull and reroute power through backup systems. This was something organic, something that thought and felt and lived. And it was shutting down one system at a time, like a body going into shock. Think, Marcus muttered, his hands flying over the crystalline console. The symbols were starting to make sense now, not because he could read them, but because the ship was teaching him. Desperate images flooded his mind. Concepts without words. Needs without language. The vessel was showing him what it required to survive. Energy. Not the simple electrical power from his shuttle, but something more complex. Something biological. Something that Marcus did not have. The Zephyr stirred again, her color-shifting skin flickering between deep blues and pale greens. Her voice came into his mind again, clearer this time despite her weakness. The core needs resonance. Life force. But not mine. I am too connected. Would burn both of us. Marcus understood, or thought he did. The ship needed a biological energy source to restart its systems, but using the Zephyr would kill them both. It needed someone else. Someone compatible enough to provide a jumpstart without frying themselves in the process. How compatible do I need to be? Marcus asked, already knowing the answer he was going to get, already knowing what he was about to do. Her eyes widened. Even in her weakened state, he could see the protest forming. No. Human biology, different. Could harm you. Could kill you. Not worth the risk. Let me worry about that, Marcus said. He was already removing his gloves, already pressing his bare hands against the warm crystal of the console. Tell me what to do. The connection. What happened next was beyond Marcus's ability to describe. The moment his skin made contact with the living ship, something opened inside him. It was like every nerve ending suddenly connected to something vast and ancient and achingly beautiful. He could feel the vessel's pain, its desperation, its fierce love for the pilot it protected. He could feel the Zephyr's presence too, a bright consciousness intertwined with the ship's own awareness. And they could feel him. Marcus Webb, 47 years old, running from ghosts, carrying scars that never healed. They felt his guilt over the people he could not save, his isolation, his deep and profound loneliness. They felt everything, and they did not judge. They simply understood. Now, the Zephyr's voice whispered in his mind. Release your essence. Share your life. Marcus did not know what that meant, but his body seemed to understand anyway. Something flowed out of him, through his hands, into the crystalline matrix of the ship. It was not blood or breath or any physical thing. It was something deeper. Something that made him Marcus. And the ship drank it in desperately, like a dying plant finally receiving water. The pain was extraordinary. Every cell in his body screamed. His muscles locked. His vision went white. He heard himself making sounds, though whether they were screams or cries or prayers, he could not tell. The ship was taking too much. He was giving too much. But he could not stop. Could not let go. Because if he did, both the Zephyr and her vessel would die, and Marcus had lost too many people already. He would not lose these two. Enough. The Zephyr's mental voice cut through the pain like a blade. Enough. You have given enough. The connection broke. Marcus collapsed backward, his hands smoking, his entire body trembling with exhaustion. Through blurring vision, he watched light flood through the vessel. Systems came online. The walls brightened. The air grew warmer, richer, filling with complex scents that meant life and growth and survival. The ship was healing. He had done it. They would live. Then the darkness took him, and Marcus knew nothing more. Awakening. Marcus woke slowly, his body feeling like one giant bruise. Every muscle ached. His hands throbbed with a deep, bone-level pain. But he was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. He opened his eyes to find himself lying on something soft that definitely had not been in the ship before. The Zephyra knelt beside him, her colors now vibrant and strong, cycling through brilliant golds and greens. Her expression, though alien, was clearly one of concern. "You are awake," she said, and this time he heard her voice both in his mind and aloud, a musical sound that made the air shimmer. "I feared. I did not know if humans could survive such a connection." "Neither did I," Marcus croaked. His throat felt raw. "Did it work? Is the ship alive and healing?" "Thanks to you. Thanks to your sacrifice." She placed a long-fingered hand gently on his chest. "You gave part of yourself to save us." "Why? You do not know me. You do not know my people. Why risk everything?" Marcus tried to sit up, winced, and let her help him into a half-reclined position. Through the crystalline walls, he could see stars, could feel the gentle thrum of the ship's systems working properly again. They were no longer drifting. They were no longer dying. "I used to be a rescue tech," he said finally. "Long time ago. Before I came out here. I saved people. That was my job. That was who I was." He paused, staring at his bandaged hands. "Until the day I could not save everyone. Until the day I had to choose who lived. After that, I ran. Came out here to be alone, to not have to make those choices again." "But you made a choice today," the Zephyr said softly. "You chose to help." "Yeah. Guess I did." Marcus managed a weak smile. "Old habits." She was quiet for a moment, her colors shifting to deep, thoughtful purples. "My name is Lyriceel. I am a keeper of the Zephyr Collective. We are travelers, explorers, seekers of connection between distant worlds. I was on a survey mission when the spatial rift damaged my vessel. I sent the distress signal hoping someone, anyone, might hear. And you got a broken-down mechanic instead of a proper rescue ship." "I received exactly who I needed," Lyriceel corrected gently. "A proper rescue ship would have tried to interface with my vessel's systems using their technology. It would have failed. Only someone willing to connect on a biological level, to give of themselves, could have saved us. Only someone brave enough or foolish enough or desperate enough to matter more than themselves." Marcus did not know what to say to that. He had spent 10 years trying to not matter, to not be important, to not make decisions that affected other lives. And in one moment of instinct, he had thrown all of that away. "What happens now?" he asked. "The offer." Lyriceel stood, moving with a grace that seemed almost like floating. "Now we heal. Both of us. My vessel will need several days to fully recover, though it is no longer in danger. You will need time as well. The connection you formed, it changed you. Not in harmful ways," she added quickly, seeing his alarm. "But you are now compatible. You can sense my vessel's presence. You will always be able to, no matter where in the galaxy you go. We are connected now, you and I and this ship." "Connected how?" "In ways that are difficult to explain to someone who has not experienced Zephyr culture. We believe that all consciousness is interconnected, that helping another is helping yourself, that true strength comes not from isolation but from bonds freely chosen. You chose to bond with us, Marcus Webb. That makes you something rare. Something precious." She moved to the crystalline console and touched it gently. Symbols flowed across the surface, beautiful and incomprehensible. "I must return to my people, report what happened, continue my mission. But I do not wish to leave you alone in that cold station, working in isolation, haunted by ghosts." She turned to face him, her eyes holding his. "Come with me." "Come with you?" Marcus repeated, not sure he had heard correctly. "I am just a mechanic. I do not know anything about your people or your missions or—" "You are a mechanic who can interface with our living technology. You are a healer who saved a life when you could have run. You are someone who, despite all your pain and fear, chose to help a stranger." Lyraseal's colors brightened, filled with hope and something that might have been excitement. The collective has been searching for humans who can connect with our vessels. Most of your kind are too rigid in their thinking, too reliant on your mechanical technology. But you understood. You felt. You gave of yourself. I do not know, Marcus said slowly. Everything in him wanted to retreat, to return to his safe, lonely station, to the familiar isolation he had built around himself. But there was something else too. A small spark of something he had not felt in years. Curiosity. Interest. Hope. I have responsibilities. Contracts. A whole station that barely functions without me. The station functions because of the automated systems you repaired and improved. You know this. You have been slowly making yourself unnecessary there, giving yourself reasons to eventually leave. Lyraseal's insight cut through his defenses. You have been preparing to move on. You simply did not know where to go. She was right. Marcus knew she was right. For the past year, he had been feeling restless, the isolation that once protected him starting to suffocate instead. But he had no idea what came next. No direction. No purpose beyond surviving one day at a time. What would I do, he asked quietly. If I came with you? Learn. Help. Heal. Lyraseal gestured to the ship around them. The collective has hundreds of vessels, thousands of keepers traveling the galaxy. Sometimes our ships are damaged. Sometimes they follow in ways our own technology cannot repair. We need someone who understands both human mechanical principles and Zephyr biological systems. Someone who can bridge the gap between our peoples. She smiled, a surprisingly human gesture. We need a mechanic. One brave enough to fix gods. The choice. Marcus sat in silence for a long time, feeling the gentle pulse of the living ship around him, feeling the connection to Lyraseal and her vessel thrumming in the back of his mind. It should have been frightening. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like coming home after a very long journey. He thought about the station, cold and empty except for his machines and memories. He thought about the transport that burned, about the faces he could not save, about 10 years of running from himself. And he thought about Lyraseal's offer. A chance to help. A chance to matter again. A chance to maybe, finally, forgive himself for the past by building something new in the future. I cannot promise I will be good at this, he said finally. I cannot promise I will not mess up or make mistakes or... No one can promise that, Lyraseal interrupted gently. We only ask that you try. That you bring your skills, your experience, your bravery to our collective. That you allow yourself to be part of something larger than isolation and pain. Marcus looked at his bandaged hands, marked now by the connection he had formed. They would heal, Lyraseal had said. They would always carry a faint shimmer, a reminder of what he had given. He flexed his fingers carefully, feeling only a dull ache now instead of the searing pain. All right, he said. All right, I will come with you. I will try. The joy that flooded from Lyraseal was almost overwhelming, a rush of warmth and gratitude and welcome that made Marcus's eyes sting. She reached out and took his hands carefully, mindful of his injuries, and he felt not just her presence but the ship's as well. Both of them welcoming him. Both of them accepting him. Both of them offering him something he had not realized he needed. A place to belong. Thank you, Lyraseal said. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for choosing to help. Thank you for being willing to try again. Thank you for the distress signal, Marcus replied with a small smile. And for not letting me forward it to the authorities. She laughed, that musical sound filling the chamber. That would have been significantly less interesting. New beginnings. 3 days later, Marcus Webb sealed the airlock of Waypoint Echo 9 for the last time. He had packed what little he wanted to keep. A few tools. Some old photos. The salvage shuttle would be left for the next mechanic who wandered through. Everything else could stay. Lyraseal's vessel, now fully healed and glowing with vibrant life, waited nearby. Through their connection, Marcus could feel the ship's eagerness to return home, to show the collective what they had found. A human mechanic who could interface with their living technology. Someone who could help bridge two species. Someone who had chosen to matter again. Ready? Lyrasil asked, her colors bright with anticipation. Marcus took one last look at the station that had been his hiding place for so long. Then he turned away, toward the vessel, toward Lyrasil, toward a future he could not predict but was willing to face. Ready, he said. As the crystalline ship carried them away into the stars, Marcus felt something he had not experienced in 10 long years. Peace. Not the empty peace of isolation, but the real kind. The kind that comes from choosing to help. From being part of something bigger than yourself. From accepting that your mistakes do not define you, but your choices do. He had made a choice. To save 3 lives, his own included. And that choice had changed everything. The mechanic who fixed gods had finally learned how to fix himself. Behind them, Waypoint Echo 9 grew smaller in the darkness. Ahead, a galaxy full of living ships and their keepers waited. Marcus Webb smiled, pressed his shimmering hand against the console, and felt the vessel respond with what he could only describe as joy. He was going home. And home, he was learning, was not a place. It was a connection. It was a choice. It was the willingness to try again, even after everything fell apart. It was the courage to be found when you thought you wanted to stay lost.